every day, the common problems that we always get calls on. Some things for you to look for when you're at the top of the ladder. You can see a lot of things from your ladder, so it's nice to be able to get around in the attics and look around, but you know, if you have a powerful flashlight, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to pick up quite a few things and some good information. So this part works here.
Sorry, can you bring your screen?
And if you have any questions as we go, just let them rip. It's a formal but informal layout. It's a guideline, so if you have something that pops up as we're going here, just let me see it and follow your question. We can go over it.
One more time getting you active here. 1 second.
So the topics I want to cover today, first one is attic rain, and it's a related causes of air leakage. We'll talk a little bit about the current attic insulation code, go over vermiculite/zonalite a little bit, some of the common attic insulation types that you'll see as you do inspections and how you can rate them to give the attic overall R value rating. Go over attic ventilation in a fairly broad look at that, and then some average costs of the work that we do, so you can pass along a budget price to homeowners. Each one of these topics could almost be a whole hour to itself if you really dug into it. So we won't dig too deep, but if something comes up, if you have a question, let me know. Struggling with this.
Go.
Okay. So yeah, first topic here, attic rain. I'm sure you have come across this in the last few years. It seems to be, I didn't even know there was a term for this until a couple of years ago. People started to call this attic rain, but with the way that the winters have been going the last 5 years or so, with the cold week or 2 weeks, and then we warm up back to +5 or 0, and then we go back down. All these temperature cycles seem to have really exacerbated this problem. So attic rain essentially is a buildup of condensation as frost underneath the roof deck. And then when we do see that temperature warm up, it will literally rain in the attic. So causes of this that I'm seeing, it's many-fold, but the root cause I feel is penetrations or air leakage from penetrations. Can come from wiring and plumbing. Bathroom exhaust fans are a real bad one for this. Hot lights and speakers. Firewalls, if we're dealing with a condominium type of a situation. Pass-throughs, essentially holes in the building structure that allow air and heat to come up from the home. Attic accesses. And the secret to fixing this, of course, is to seal those up. So when you're looking in the attic from your ladder, some of the evidence or some things I look for is pock marks in the insulation. The right-hand picture is a fiberglass bat. Obvious pock marks there. The left side is a blown fiberglass material. And what we're seeing there is pock marks as well as a drip line right here. And those drip lines will form as the water on the roof deck runs down, hits a seam between sheets, breaks off, and then falls down into the insulation. So you can read the attic for problems by looking for those signs of moisture. Now, some more evidence of an issue. If you're looking at the picture on the left, that's also a blown fiberglass type of insulation. We're seeing mold starting to form on top of the insulation there. You'll also see a little glitter in the insulation, and that would be frost on that top layer of the insulation. Now, if we're looking at cellulose attic, what I'm looking for there is a dark spot in the wintertime. That will actually be wet insulation. And in both those situations, what's happening is the air is rising out of the house, hits that top layer of the insulation where it freezes, gets cold. If it's cold enough, that gray spot will actually be frost. If it's in a warmer temperature, then we'll see that dark wet spot. And it's so pronounced that I'll be in attics sometimes and I can actually count the person's pot lights in their kitchen because it'll be a round circle over top of every single one. You'll go to another darker wet spot in the insulation, put your hand down and you'll see a wire penetration. It's black and white. It's air leaking out those holes. Speaking of those holes, so these are the types of things that we uncover once we dig into it. So as a contractor trying to solve these problems, I can't know where all of the trouble lies underneath the insulation. So what we do a lot of is removal of the insulation product, and then we can see everything. All three of these examples were from the same attic. There's actually a few more, but big hole there that was cut for plumbing pipe that was never used, electrical penetrations in the wall plates. That was just a big hole that was left as just how the home was constructed, but you can see in the corner there that the vapor barrier wasn't finished up well. So,
is that new home construction?
Yeah, this was a half duplex, 2-story half duplex, probably for sure less than 10 years old. And that seems to be, when it comes to this attic rain issue, that seems to be the type of home that we're in more often. Newer construction, usually 2 stories, but not always. And you know, I have theories as to why we're seeing that, but that does seem to be the thing we're seeing now. I go into older homes, 50s, 60s, and the attics look, you know, relatively good. So some more areas where we're seeing air leakage. The left picture is the firewall on a condo. That fire tape has been discolored from the moisture that leaks up there. Another wire penetration. Chimney flue is another, or the chimney chase is another area where we often see a lot of air leakage because there's no seal there. You can sometimes see directly into the basement. There's a couple more prominent examples. And these pictures are all basically, I just rolled through my iPhone from the last year and a half and just plucked photos out. So I didn't have to look too hard to pull out these problem pictures. Another common one here, this is the house I looked at yesterday, but I see this sort of thing all the time too. That attic catch surround will come off the ceiling. Even if it is tight to the ceiling, there's still typically a gap there. So when you pop an attic hatch in the winter time and you get that frost fall down on you because there's a buildup of it around the attic surround, that's the main problem there. Lack of seal between the trim and the ceiling, and also a lack of seal between the lid and the where it sits. Now this is actually in my own home. I needed a photo of this to show the issue, but newer homes, the pot light cans are IC rated, so they're approved for insulation contact, and they're supposed to be also airtight. But we're relying on a trim ring with a foam gasket to stop that air from getting through that gap between the drywall and the can. So while the can itself may be airtight, the air still works its way around it. So again, pot lights are a bad one. I'll go into some homes that, or I'm sure you see them too. 3,000 square foot home, when you start counting the pot light penetration, speaker penetrations, and you get up into about 25 pretty fast. So add up all of that, all that air leakage, and pretty soon you're equivalent of having a giant hole. Okay, I wonder how we can do this.
Is this lack of polypan?
Well, I'll have some pictures that will show those here in a minute. Okay, good. So the air is coming up from this home with such force that you can see the poly flapping and the insulation moving as well. So everybody saw that. Yeah. This was a home in Leduc, probably a few years ago. Let's go back to that polypan question. The photo will come up here soon. In most instances, those covers are present, but they're not sealed well. We'll get there. So here another couple pictures of air leakage at firewalls. So condominium application again. Here we can actually see the frost licking up the wall in the winter time. Obvious stains from the past there as well. And then over here we can see what that's done to the roof deck in this area. Mold formation. What's happening here is the common wall between the two units. We saw that air chimney from the video before. Imagine that air chimney between those two walls. And it'll leak out between the wall plate next to the firewall, and it'll leak out at the top here. I'm starting to see some very thorough specs being done up by engineering firms. The latest one was a building less than 10 years old. For sure, they were having moisture problems. The spec was to seal, and how they had spec fixing this problem was actually to cut into the firewall and spray foam down basically at the ceiling level to stop that air flow at that point. So it's pretty extensive repair to make that happen.
Should that be unconditioned space between the two units?
Yes, as far as you would think it'd be cold, or yeah, it's not. It's carrying heat with it. You'll see also one, if you're driving around, all I do is look at roofs for some reason. You'll see, you can tell where the firewall is because that's the spot where there's no snow. It's melted off. So it's rushing right up there. This is a different attic, same problem. So now bathroom exhaust fans. This is the #1 phone call generator that I have. we get. The first sign that people get usually of this problem is they'll have water dripping out of their exhaust fan. They'll notice stains in this around that fan as well. The right picture here shows kind of part of what you will see in an attic if you're looking for this problem. Underneath that big pile of black is the bathroom exhaust. So there are probably about 5 ways that these things can fail. Everything from a lack of insulation over top of the fan housing causing condensation inside that can. The way that the pipe is connected to the bathroom exhaust fan itself. The lack of connection at the roof, which we'll see here shortly. How the pipe is installed, they go wrong in any number of ways. We were doing so well here. There we go.
You mind just putting that down for a second on our button for control?
Oh, okay. No. So on the roof side of the bathroom exhaust fan, that's usually where people will see the problem most dramatically. So this type of installation is common in new construction for last decade at least, maybe longer. So what we have there is an adapter, sheet metal adapter that's screwed to the underside of the roof, and it has a snout that attaches to it where the pipe attaches. But what happens is the air will escape from that assembly out around every direction of that metal adapter. So in the winter time, it's pretty obvious you're going to see icicles like that, large frost buildup underneath the roof deck in that area. In the summertime, you'll be left with just evidence, like you see in the left picture, mold, staining, that sort of thing. If this goes on long enough, that roof deck gets compromised quite a bit, and we'll actually see those pipes fall off, those screws. OSB doesn't have the greatest holding power in the first place, and then when you start to moisture all the time, those things will just fall off the roof.
Is there any chance with that photo that the roof hook was plugged or stuck shut or?
Don't really see that with any regularity.
Oh, okay. So I was wondering where the back pressure would come from.
It's there's just no. I should mention there's no connection between the typical gooseneck that's on the roof and the pipe. That's part of the problem. There's no link toward the two pieces. In older homes, it's actually just a pipe and a hole in the roof. They did that for a long time. And funny enough, those tend to not give people that much trouble, but this setup does.
Should there be a gasket?
The gasket, I've seen the gasket done once in a while too. Doesn't seem to have any effect.
Is there any repair you can do?
No, yeah, we're going to see that here in a bit. If I can get the slide to go to the next one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so back to the question about the poly hats a little while ago. So yeah, they're there, but this is always what we come across when we start to dig into it. The acoustical sealing doesn't really get done well, or it dries up and doesn't seal anymore. So we can easily get underneath those. The other issue is where the wire, there's always the electrical wire comes into that boot at some point too, and those are never sealed up either. So Plus, I don't have a picture of it, but sometimes those pot lights are supported by the brackets or the rods that come with the can. And you're trying to put a boot over top of this. It's just it's a mess. It's a difficult thing to do properly. And as a consequence, it never really does get done properly. Random picture, this is kind of more of a comedic effect than anything, but I was in some ways impressed with this little bit of engineering that I came across one day. We have a flapper here with a uninsulated dryer vent tube with some sort of a catch can that leads to this pipe out the whirlybird. So I guess it's nice. I guess if we can, actually this is the house that Chris recommended the homeowners to talk to me about. So if we can say anything about this, the bathroom exhaust fan should be on its own vent. No 2-to-1, no pipe to another vent, that sort of thing. So the fix, there's a couple of vents on the market that allow a secure connection to the pipe. This is the one that I've been using most lately. It's called the Primex RV28. It's pretty simple. It just has that snap-on adapter you can see in the both pictures there that connects to the bottom of that of the gooseneck. So it's adaptable for size. The connection between the adapter and the vent is above the roof deck. So if you do get any leakage out at that point, it's already outside and above that shingle line, so it's going down. Obviously, it gives us something to tape a pipe to, which is what we need. Your common silver metal gooseneck that sits over top of a hole, there's nothing there to adapt to. So some of the air sealing techniques, what we do to fix this when we get called into these problems. There are a few ways to go about it. Sealants, tape, poly, those sorts of things. I'm at the point right now where what we're using is 2-pound spray foam insulation. And I do that because I don't want to have any callbacks. If you're relying on tapes and sealants and all these things, it's only as good as the guy that's fiddling with it and trying to make it tight. When we hit something with foam, if it's covered, it's sealed. It's done. So these pictures here, we're just showing interior wall plates, exterior wall plates, electrical boxes. The next photo, we're seeing it's a little hard to see, but along here is the side of the firewall. We'll actually, those poly hats that are over top of pot lights, the poly hats that are over top of bathroom exhaust fans, we'll actually encase those in foam too. We don't want any air leaking out, so that's the measures that we're using right now. Any questions on that topic before I jump to the next one?
In your bathroom piping,
Yep.
best practice, do you allow a drip looping or?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could talk on bathroom exhaust alone for probably half an hour, just because it's, we see so many of them. And over the years, we've used product A and product B or different techniques, and we get feedback based on whether it fixed it or not, because the customer will call. And that's good. We figure things out as we go. But I think the ultimate, if you had no budget, or an unlimited budget, I should say, you would likely do a hard ducted bathroom exhaust line, like maybe ABS or PVC pipe, run up to a gooseneck vent like I was showing. And then that would be encased in spray foam insulation. But now we're talking about probably, we might be talking about $1,000 bathroom exhaust fan pipe. And it's non-starter. So what we're doing now is we'll use an insulated flex hose. You can't really buy a better or best one. There is only one kind. It gets installed in a way that will come off the fan. We'll do a fairly quick, not too quick, but we'll come up within about 1 or 2 feet of that fan up and then back down to the ceiling height. And that's where our condensation collection loop is. And then we head up and out. We try to keep it as short as we can, but we have to allow for that. We can't stop the condensation in the pipe. It's the whole idea is a bad one. Trying to run bathroom exhaust air through a up to -30 attic. It's not a good idea. You know, the newer homes now, you're starting to see those vents get incorporated into an HRV system, which is great because it keeps that air out of the attic space. But on the old homes, we have to do we can to stop the water from coming into people's bathrooms. So we have a short collection route or a loop, I guess, that will hold that condensation. If we make that loop too tight, imagine a P-trap under a sink, it will actually act like a P-trap and stop the flow of air, and that's not good. So, and in an attic where we're working like this, where we starting from scratch, and I have my spray foam dye coming in, then we will actually coat that pipe too with foam to give it more and seal.
Do you think that adding a roof loop with a backflow flap on it would help as well?
Yeah, these do have it built into them.
Because a lot of builders are just throw the screen on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they have no backflow on the roof end, and then backflow on the fans. The cheaper ones are really poor.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting a lot of air leakage both ways, cold coming in, more moist air going up.
Yeah.
All the time,
I think that's maybe part of the problem, but that's a pretty small part of the problem. You know, you still have that whole pipe sitting in the cold space anyway. So the flappers are nice to prevent that cold from coming back down into the fan itself. But as it relates to this issue, I don't see it being that make it or break it. All the good goosenecks have that built into them.
Meaning backflow.
Yeah.
But builders don't use good ones.
Yeah, that's I mean, there could be a handful of changes done to code and I wouldn't have anything to do. So that doesn't seem to happen.
How thick do you spray? And how deep is it?
When we're doing air seal work, we're looking for a 2-inch, you know. Yeah. On paper at 2 inches, the 2-pound foam is meant to act as an air barrier. So I think it probably does the job at thicknesses less than that, but it's not easy to spray foam less than that thickness anyway. It rises.
So it doesn't matter whether there's a big barrier present on the ceiling or not.
Right. Yeah.
What does it cost to remove the insulation from the system?
Yeah, I have a cost slide coming up at the very end.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So just a quick overview of the current attic insulation codes. There was a new code put into effect in November of 2016. So any homes built after that or permitted after that should be at these levels. The code is a little bit funky because there is a different side to it, but I'm just going to focus on, I think, what they call a prescriptive code. And that would be R50 when it's the home is equipped with an HRV, and R60 if not equipped with an HRV. Is
HRV not required now? That's part of the code, isn't it?
That,
No, you can get away with it.
yeah, I think you can do it.
Without having higher insulation.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The new energy codes are all about sort of the performance model of the building, right? So you can take trade-offs in various areas.
Exactly. That's the other side of the code that I wasn't going to venture into because it's a little bit wild, but they look at the home as an overall unit. So I've heard stories of some builders are still at R40 and it still gets passed because the home as a whole makes it through. This code is dependent on climate zones. So this is the climate zone map. Most people fall into that 7A there, which is the R50 and 60 levels. Down in the deep south, it falls down to, I think, 40 and 50. But yeah, this is it's a little hard to see, but the attic insulation code is at the top. The R values are in the little letters as well. But this says 50, that's 60, that's 40, that's 50. So that brings us to the next topic, vermiculite and zonalite. How many people run into this on a, was there a question?
Yeah, I had a about code.
Yeah.
How about fire, how about taping and drywall in firewall situation? Must be taped.
It does have to be taped, yeah.
Yeah. New code now.
That, you were outside of my my area of expertise there. So, you mean tape with like tape, I think it's tape with one coat. Yeah,
I never used it.
I think you're correct. Yeah.
Just depends where you are. Some municipalities, they just require hard backing, solid backing on the joints and get the one.
Okay. Yeah. So back to this vermiculite zonalite. Do you guys see this much in your travels? Yeah.
Just this week.
Yeah. So this one is a bit of a tough. I don't know. I guess it's not that tough of a topic, but no one really comes out and says, "Don't do this," or "This is gonna kill you," or there's no one steps out on a limb and says anything. So there seems to be this gray area that surrounds this product as it relates to attics. So if you haven't seen it before, I mean, sometimes you'll actually see bags of it in an attic that are labeled zonalite that look like that. It was essentially a do-it-yourself product. So that's why you'll see in attics that someone will get ambitious for a weekend and go to their hardware store back in 1960 and pick this stuff up. And they'll spread it out for about 30 square feet and then stop. So they'll do just enough to kind of screw things up for the next 40 years. But very rarely do I see like an ocean of where the whole attic is like that. It's always just one little spot here, a little spot there, that sort of thing. So I revisit this topic a lot of times. There was a time where back in the old days, I know my dad has blown over lots of vermiculite. He was in the attic for 32 years, I think, is how long he was actually on the end of the hose. But we stopped insulating over top of vermiculite several years ago. We used to do the testing and take it in and get it checked and see what the percentage is and all that stuff. But the bottom line with it is it's really difficult to determine if the product is contaminated and how much it's contaminated. When I was looking through researching this a bit more for this presentation, they talked about collecting samples in 4 spots of the attic, making sure that you've dug right down at the bottom because the asbestos settled down over time. And it just brings me back to the same point. Like, I can't prove with 100% certainty that it isn't contaminated. And when I can't do that, then we have to treat it as if it is. And when it's when it's treated as if it is, that means that we shouldn't disturb the product. And going into an attic and crawling around and pneumatically blowing insulation will certainly disturb it. So I also don't want to be the guy that covers it up, hides it, then you guys don't see it when you do a home inspection later on. Homeowner does a renovation a few years after that, and lo and behold, there's the stuff. Why did you cover it up? Oh, the homeowners left the invoice behind of the insulator that did the job. And so that hasn't happened, thankfully, but I can see that scenario playing out. So that's, and obviously the help of my installers too. I can't ask them to put themselves into that situation either. So.
It's gonna contaminate.
Asbestos. Yes. So I guess we should back up. It was produced in a mine in Montana, Libby, Montana, over a certain time frame, and that seems to be where most of the product that was contaminated came from. We're obviously just north of there, so I feel like we're right in that zone where a lot of that product did come up into to our territory here. So a couple of pictures showing what I normally see. And it's just it'll look like a regular attic, and then you'll have a section that's done like that. It accomplished nothing back then. I don't know why the homeowners did it, but there it is.
You said you tested it at one time.
Yeah.
Any recollection what some of the numbers might have been?
Yeah, I kept getting this less than 1%, less than 1%. It was almost like they were covering themselves to say it might be there, but it was inconclusive. I only had a few tests where it came back and was like glowing radioactive almost, but most of the time it's some trace amount. And I just don't take the risk anymore. I mean, occupational health and safety is only going in one direction. It's not towards being easier on folks.
The way I understand the Alberta asbestos abatement manual is the percentage, you get pushback sometimes and say they tested it and it was less than 1%. I'm trying to tell you that it's not reporting it. But my understanding is that only applies to things like floor tiles and other products like that, where it's not easily made, airborne, or friable.
Yeah.
When it comes to vermiculite, anything above 0 is a positive result.
Yeah, that's true.
So the less than 1% thing still needs to pop.
I would get some that said non-detected. So, but for the most part, it was always less than 1%.
So do you abate it then? Or
I don't know. It's a whole another world of qualification to do that.
I work for another organization where we tested the vermiculite walls and ceilings, and I've done quite a few tests. And to go to your question, pretty much 100%.
Yeah.
Vermiculite has come up as
Yeah. So the important thing to talk about here, and the reason I feel strongly about this topic is, I mean, the homeowner could find someone to work in there. I'm sure that somebody would do the work. But I run into, I've had this happen over the years a lot of times where someone will have just purchased a home and they have me come and look at the attic with the intent of upgrading it. And I'm the guy who tells them about this situation. And abatement runs at a minimum of $10 a square foot. So that's a $10,000+ topic we're seeing there.
A lot higher than that.
Yeah, so I say a minimum. Yeah.
This place that you did in Manning,
Yeah.
it was probably 2,200 square feet. It was going to cost me $77K.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I see this as the biggest liability. I for home inspectors. if they aren't aware of that price tag and the fact that people really shouldn't be working in their attic, or if they want to do a home renovation down the road and the ceilings have to be dropped or what have you, that's going to catch up with them at some point in the time they own the home. And maybe when they go to sell it again, it comes up. So
I think it's important to realize too that if you do read in all this stuff, and come back to the age of 30 or 40.
oh sure, yeah, yeah, it's a miracle. My dad's probably not underground by now, because he was, like I say, in lots of these acts. Back then, you know, a lot less was known and just different attitudes. So yeah.
This might be off topic a little bit. You see that white powder substance on framing?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what that is?
It's lime.
Yeah.
It's lime.
Yeah.
Or wood shape.
That's associated with the wood shavings. Some attics you see it real heavy, and some attics you don't. It seems to be non-existent in the wood chips.
Yeah, sure.
I really don't know what the purpose of it was. I suspected the. Go ahead. So the next few slides we've talked about already. I just pulled these out of the directly off the health and safety website, just to. They essentially say don't disturb the product. Don't let your kids in here.
But you make a good point. If the homeowner is looking at getting renovations and hiring professionals, which professionals will go up there and do that now?
Exactly. Yeah. Really, there shouldn't be anybody. But
Occupational health and safety probably.
I think you're actually opposite.
yeah, I know it's only a gray area because people, the awareness isn't out there as much as it should be. There's still lots of guys that have a hard time passing up that job. Like I'll go into weeks where I won't see vermiculite for 3 weeks, and then I'll have a week where I turn away 4 addicts. And then I go back to the internet and research it again and make sure that my head's in the right place. Okay, yeah, we're doing the right thing and move on. But I'm still running into new homeowners that don't know they have it. And this is a tricky one because you can't always see it from your ladder. I was in an attic a week or two ago where you could not see the vermiculite from the attic access. It was in the far corner of the attic. You wouldn't have known it was there unless you actually went for a walk. And,
I had a house where they'd added onto the house, no one knew until I told them. And I decided to crawl into the attic, and sure enough, the old half was filled with vermiculite.
Yep.
The half where the hatch was fine.
Right.
You couldn't see it from the hatch.
so yeah, it's
I kind of around my brow, and that some of them to go down.
yeah.
You're also favoring wood chips.
Yeah. So I guess the point of that topic is to be cautious with it. And if you suspect it at all, have someone like me come in and look at it, and we can make that determination. So some quick, this sheet's probably review for a lot of guys, but we'll go through real quick here. Common types of attic insulation that you're going to come across. Wood shavings, very commonly installed up to about 1975. R value of 2 per inch. Typical depth is around 4 inches. So one R8 is what we generally rate these attics at. Blow and glass fiber, it's been around since 80, maybe a touch earlier than that, actually probably 76, but about an R value of 2.7 per inch. Many different colors and textures, and this product's been reinvented many times over the years. This picture shows a more current attic. This is a light take. This is an old Spartan product. The newer products, the newer fiberglass is softer to touch. It's not as abrasive, but the overall effect is the same. It's still the same R value, same properties. Left is a cube blown in fiberglass. Right is a pink. It looks like popcorn twists. Now we have cellulose insulation, light gray in color, about R3.7 per inch, installed from about 1975 to present. So it kind of took off. The glass and the cellulose started to go once the wood chips stopped being used.
Are they still using that cell?
Yeah, that's what I choose to blow as an installer. Fiberglass bat gives you about R3 per inch. You don't see this too much in attics because bats aren't great or aren't well adapted to working in an attic space with all the things to work around. Mostly you come across these in rural homes where people maybe did it themselves or modular homes. Rock wool, it looks similar to cellulose, but it has more of a fiberglass feel to it. About R3.5 per inch. I don't come across this one too often. There was a period of time, I think in the 80s, where
the federal government had a rebate program.
yeah, the chip program. Yeah. And again, you probably won't come across this very often, but newer homes, we start to see this as the base layer of insulation. So they'll throw down about a 2-inch coat of it and then go over top of it. So if you're depth checking, you might feel like a soft bottom to the insulation. There's two kinds, 1/2 pound and 2 pound. You can differentiate the two by touch. 1/2 pound, you can feel like you can squish it with your fingers. 2 pound feels pretty hard to touch. Okay, so quick attic ventilation overview. Don't want to go too deep on this just because this can be a topic all by itself too. We're looking to balance intake and exhaust venting in an attic. Soffits are essentially non-functional pre-1978. So we'll see some pictures about that in a second. There's lots of different kinds of roof vents on the market, especially now. It seems like everybody's coming out with new, different looking products, but the bottom line is that we don't want to see the vents get mixed together or used on the same roof. Ventilation requirements should be double for low slope attics, and inadequate ventilation will void your shingle warranty. So if you do have a claim and they come out and inspect it, it's an easy out for shingle manufacturer. And we'll look at some of the problems with intake vents. So this is what is underneath aluminum soffit material in the vast majority of homes built before 1978. They would build a wood plywood soffit, and then they would cut these screens or holes or what have you in every so often. But it's essentially a non-functional soffit that masquerades as a functional soffit because of the perforated material over top of it. So give or take a couple of years, but that's kind of my guideline that I go off of. If it's built before, 78, 76, something like that, then it's almost certainly in this boat. Anything built after that tends to be a more open soffit until we get into the newer codes with the changes to fire code. Once we pull the plywood down, this is what we typically will see next. It's a plywood block. This gap between the roof deck and the block will vary, but you know, we kind of want to see that at least about an inch. Quite often that block will get knocked out completely so that we can open that soffit right up. Which then leads us to the baffles. So this, if we had a gap, about an inch gap on top of that plywood block, that baffle would butt into that area. And the idea, of course, is to have the air flow up from the soffits, run through these channels above the insulation and provide the intake flow. Anything built after about 80, we start to get into the era where it was a fully open soffit and cardboard insulation stops were used. This is showing some of the issues that we're seeing with intake vents that were a result of the fire code changes. It's actually almost been 10 years since that was in effect. But homes built a certain distance apart had to have a non-vented soffit, and they moved the intake ventilation to the roof. And so there's been some issues coming up with that. You can see in this one, it's hard to see where the intake vent is, but it's,
They're supposed to have a little baffle on them, right, to stop there.
yeah. So some of them have a baffling system built into the vent. Others have a little kicker that's supposed to prevent the air from going straight up the insulation. But you'll often see this wind sweeping the vents right there. And it blew all the insulation off of that all day.
Infrared camera was great.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a slide just to show some of the different styles of intake venting that's out there. It's definitely not all created equal. The most common is a little guy like this that we'll see used as an intake. Some of there's actually some shingle over intake vents that are starting to be used. I talked to my roofing guy yesterday, and he's did a couple projects with this year and said that they worked really well. So, and then we have this big boy here made out in Quebec. You can see it's baffled in the front, it's baffled in here. There's a screen behind here, so it has several layers of wind protection. And this is about a $10 vent. This is about a $80 vent. Again, the several different exhaust vents or the roof vents on the market right now, ranging from your standard flat, good old whirlybirds, vents that try to create more draw, like these two here and the Woodbird. But what we don't want to do, again, is to mix vents. So if you see something like this on the roof, that's not what we want to see happen. Almost every vent manufacturer will actually say in their instructions, don't put on the roof with another vent product. I was in Sherwood Park yesterday looking for photos that I could take, and it took me 30 seconds to find two prime examples. So the idea here is that we're short-circuiting the venting system by having another source of intake air close by. So whirlybirds would draw from those flat vents. If this house most likely doesn't have a functional soffit, but we'll say it does. If it does, then that air isn't being drawn up from the soffits because it's being taken from the easier space. If those flat vents were gone, I would probably move those whirlybirds to the corners of that space to spread them out a little bit. Also get that one whirlybird away from that chimney as well.
What's your thoughts on the turbine vents in general?
In general, I'm kind of past those. They do allow a lot of rain and snow past them. you look underneath any turbine and you will see an indentation of the insulation. In the wintertime, you'll see snow underneath them. So it's not just that vent that allows snow and rain past them, but they're definitely high on the list.
You don't use them then, you install?
Not unless requested for some reason. I'm more on this train right now. Yeah, this is a product made by Ventilation Maximum. They're made in Quebec. Seems to me like they have the venting thing dialed in. If you have a look at their website, you can train yourself to be a ventilation expert just based on their scenarios and examples and things like that. Yeah.
Oh, ridge vents.
Yeah, the ridge vents. I think if you have an attic space, I don't see why you would choose to use that when you have other options like that. There are different types of ridge vents. Ventilation Maximum makes one that's very big and very effective, but I feel like they should be used when they're needed, and that's in that cathedral ceiling scenario where you can vent it any other way.
Or with rafters?
Sorry?
With rafters more than just.
It depends. It depends on if they're an attic or not. If it's, if you're sandwiched like a cathedral ceiling, then you're into the ridge vent only. If you have any kind of attic space beneath it, then you can go with a more common vent or conventional vent.
We've been talking before, you're not a real fan of gable.
Well, it's just old.
I just thought the
Old school, right? Yeah. I mean, I think this is why this could be a topic unto itself for a whole other hour. But the thought process on that is you can try to get that flow through, but if you have roof vents on, then the draw is from that gable end vent, and then that's really only serving the top half of the attic and not the bottom half, where in a perfect world, we're always trying to draw in from low and go up high. And if we can get venting from the soffits, then that's where we always try to get it from. Last resorts or secondary is to go with the intake vents. Then that gets into, we're getting into some more advanced venting theory of that. So last slide, I guess we're ready to go now. We're here. Typical upgrade costs, you can range from 85 cents to $1.40 a square foot, depending on what we need to do. I usually tell people, if you're looking for a ballpark price, just use $1 a square foot. You won't be very far out to the good or the bad side, and it's easy math. Insulation removal, if we're vacuuming it out, we're talking more about $2 per square foot. That's a little bit dependent on the type of material, but that gets you in the range. Air sealing, $1 to $1.75. That spray foam that you saw used in air sealing applications, that's at the $1.75 end. If we're poking through an attic trying to take care of the big and obvious things, that may be more in the dollar range. Those bathroom exhaust pipe repairs, where we'll do the pipe and the new vent on the roof, about $2.50 for those. The vermiculite we talked about quite a bit already, but minimum of $10 and up. And soffit opening to get those soffits functional in those pre-78 homes. Average bungalow around $1,500. That's assuming that the metal can be reinstalled. And that's all I have for you guys. Questions?
What about that shingle vent on the lower part of the roof? What is the roof charge for that?
Not sure. I haven't been involved with one of those projects to give you a cost there.
Yeah, we see a lot of these new homes with the formaldehyde-free fiberglass blowing out of the corners.
Oh yeah,
of the
yeah.
attics. How do you deal with that?
So yeah, the wind sweeping in the corners, it can happen to both insulation products. It's not exclusive to fiberglass, but the fiberglass is lighter, so it does happen more often. It's difficult to say when that's happening because I know attics get blown before soffits get installed sometimes. So that could be when that's getting swept. But that's definitely something to watch out for is those corners.
Probably run the insulation stuff up higher than in that area.
There's not much there. I'd love to see it happen. Like I can't. It's a real tight area. You wouldn't think that you'd be getting such a flow in that corner to after soffits are installed for it to do that. But yeah.
Some builders are putting R45 glass padding in the corners
Yeah.
before they blow, which is probably not a bad idea.
Yeah, I see that for sure.
I'm just wondering from the group here, has anybody ever noticed that somebody's making attic couple access hatch? I think it's out in scale.
Yeah.
It's got a little sweep that goes around the outside and it's miserable as that. I want that to help one time. Does anybody else?
Use the suction cup.
It's a good idea. That's called the attic hatch company.
Yeah, they should put up business.
I told the guy that's buying it.
I've installed 2 of those. All right.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, guys.